Hi, and welcome everyone. I'm Colleen, and this is Robyn, and our guest, Lauri Shainsky, today. Really excited about our content. Go ahead and say hi, Lauri and Robyn.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. And thank you, Colleen, for inviting me. And thank you, Robyn, for seconding that invitation. Or maybe Colleen seconded yours.
All of the above.
Right.
And Spirit saying, you need to have Lauri on there. So for those of you that are listening, Lauri and I have been on this journey together for many years, starting way back in the 1990s, and with shamanic work and Reiki work. And she's focused on sound healing, and really excited to have her share her message today, because she is very, very skilled in many areas, but in sound healing for sure, with such a depth of knowledge and expertise. So, Lauri, thank you. I am going to go ahead and read your bio so everybody can get to know more about you.
I just wanted to say real quick that I realized when we were talking beforehand that, Lauri, I've known you for more years than I haven't known you, because we met when I want to say maybe in middle school, somewhere around there, at the very latest in high school. And so I've known you since I was a kid. That's crazy to think about. And now I'm almost 40.
I can't believe that. That makes
not to bring that part.
We must be 50 then. I can't be that old.
Crazy.
I know.
Yeah,
it's so
lovely
true
to see how you have blossomed and flourished.
Lifetime friends, just to give everybody the scope of how long we have all known each other. Lifetime friends. So go ahead, Colleen. Sorry.
No, that's great. All right. Well, Lauri Shainsky, PhD. She was raised by redwoods in Northern California. Lauri's formative years were spent at camp, set her trajectory for a life committed to nature. She began facilitating mountain camp adventures in 1978, during which she ceremonially vowed to commit her life to serving others and the earth. Lauri's time studying ecology, BA from UCLA, MS from UC Davis, and PhD from OSU. She expanded her insights and awe of nature and her profoundly intricate perfection. So Lauri's sacred vow led her to start a nonprofit organization teaching young people and adults about ecology in the outdoors. And there she enjoyed teaching birding by ear and bird language, animal tracking, terrestrial and stream ecology. Her Portland State University professorship in education and service learning expanded innovations in outdoor education. In 1998, Lauri dove deeply into spirituality at the Lightsong School of Shamanic Studies, along with Michael Harner, Tom Cowan, and Betsy Bergstrom. She furthered her sound-related studies with Tom Kenyon and Jonathan Goldman. For 2 decades, Lauri carried the songs for Lightsong, taught shamanic sound healing, and became one of the primary elders for the school. She continues to teach courses, lead ceremony, and she sees clients. You can find her at shamanic-sound-healing.com. shamanic-sound-healing.com. And of course, we'll post that in the descriptions. Lauri has a rich body of shamanic sound work that seeks to help people curate their own spiritual development, healing, and transformation. Her spirit-guided sound art contributes to shifts in our physical and metaphysical lives and provides soundtracks for personal ceremony and celebration. She has recorded 6 albums and will be recording her 7th one this month for those who are supporting others in the process of dying. Many of her sound art pieces can be found on soundcloud.com/Redstone Song. Also on YouTube at Soul Note Shamanic Sound. Now it says Healy, HELI 3321. Is that accurate, or is it healing?
No, YouTube decided that they were going to name people's channels, and instead of finding out from us, they just went ahead and did it.
Okay, so it's Soul Note Shamanic Sound. Healy is HELI 3321.
Just post it.
We'll post it. And you can find her at shamanicsoundhealing.com, and all of her information is on her website too. Go ahead, Robyn. I see you.
Nope, you're good.
Oh, no, okay. Well, anyway, Lauri, again, for those of you listening, Lauri and I have known each other a long time. We have gone on this journey together for many years, both in our training and in our actual practices. And where I took my training and focus into really focusing on Reiki healing and Reiki training and Reiki empowerment, Lauri took her focus into sound healing. So, Lauri, I think what I'd rather do, rather than me tell your story, I'd like for you to go ahead and just share your story and what led you here, however that comes out.
I think I'd like to start with a demonstration, which will kind of underscore where I have been journeying to, my current understanding and experience with shamanism and sound. And it's just an invitation for people to notice what they notice when they encounter sound that is being transmitted in combination with my own intention that I have right now for you all, to just feel, relax, maybe have an opportunity while you're listening or watching this podcast to have some weight taken off your shoulders, or take a breath from whatever it is that you're doing in the moment, and just let yourself feel this vibration.
Hey, Lauri, before you start, your camera really went out focus. So you just want to kind of put your hand up to make it go in focus.
I don't know what's happening.
Okay, that's okay. We're focusing on the sound right now.
Well, I know. I think it's really interesting that this physical thing is happening as we begin to engage in this metaphysical thing.
Totally.
The blurring of lines between the physical and the metaphysical.
Yeah.
I'm all at that interface. And these magical metal bowls that come from Tibet and India, Nepal, they have these special frequencies that inspire a resonance, a gathering around a focal point of spirit and sound. And we can notice that there's some physical sensations of the human body that are activated when we feel and hear these sounds. And I have several spirits, ambassadors of the divine, that live and love with this bowl. And there's this three-way partnership of me and the divine realms and this instrument. And these sounds in our hearts and our intentions, and our dog helpers in the neighborhood, they all weave together to bring about some healing. And sound is the perfect companion to Reiki. In fact, when I work with sound and Reiki, those symbols pulsate with the sound. And we just call ourselves to presence. We remember that deeper divine purpose as we listen and talk in this lively conversation. Remembering and knowing how important it is to have friends like the friendship that Colleen and I have cultivated, where we thought, oh, shamanism is fun. Let's go have some cool time together, which ended up an 8-year journey through a vast array of classes. And then we discovered, oh, we want to do this for a living. We can do this for a living. Wow. And so, in a nutshell, that's the path that Colleen and I, we walked, and then we've been walking parallel paths, her with Reiki, me with Shamanic Sound, and I love these opportunities when we can come together and exchange on behalf of service in some form to healing on the planet. I wish I was in my my big sound studio right now, but we're under construction out there, so this is a little bit more peaceful.
Oh, are you in Portland?
I'm in Portland, yep.
Okay. In Hidden Lake, you have you have some construction going on in Hidden Lake?
We're building a temple.
Oh, sweet.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, as the fairies are happy to say, we are improving the human component of the land there by restructuring our home from being a very dark, cold place to a very light, warm place. And it's our forever home, and I see it that I'm building the portal through which I will pass to the next world, and we're making some great improvements for guest access to the bathroom from the studio, which people had to meander through our house to go to the bathroom. Now we have a dedicated bathroom that they can just walk right onto the porch from the studio, and lots of things. Glass everywhere where we once were in this very dark cave. So
Yeah, it's so interesting because that wasn't my experience of the space, but that's different than living there, particularly where you are located in Eagle Creek and Eagle Creek, Oregon. So it sounds like though you will be going back to that space, having guests.
oh yeah, well, probably not guests, maybe a few residential people for sound intensives, but I'll be doing, classes, day use classes and ceremonies and so forth. But the days of the retreat business are over.
Okay, that's what I thought. Well,
Lauri, oh,
go ahead, Robyn.
I was just, during that sound healing, thank you very much, by the way. I was feeling it just, and I know this is true for sound healing, but I'd like to kind of hear, especially for the audience that maybe don't know a whole lot about sound healing, I was feeling it so much in different parts of my body. And it's interesting. I had this whole, like you had said before, just allow what comes to you come to you through this. And I get acupuncture monthly, and one of the things that the acupuncturist always has to work on is my heaven element, which is like kind of the ethereal, which is not super common from her experience of acupuncture and like her practice. It's not to mean that it's not common in other people's practice, which makes sense because we spend a lot of time in the ethereal, I guess, the non-physical. But what kind of came to me during that, it was like, oh, this sound healing, I'm wondering if almost it's like, because I asked, well, what can I do about that to kind of help bring me more in balance with that? She's like, a lot of grounding. When I was feeling in my body when you were doing that sound healing was so physical in a really beautiful, profound, and ethereal way in its own way. And I thought, oh, maybe this is a part of what could help that component for me, because it was such a just grounding, beautiful body, visceral experience. Can you talk a little bit about that with sound healing?
Sure. And the form of sound healing, I would call it, well, it comes from the roots of my shamanism, which means that it always begins with engaging our relationship with some emissary of the divine, some power animal, some human form spirit. Maybe it's a spirit formed or unformed, known or unknown. But there is, in my world, that requirement that there is a knowingness that I am participating in this process, and I am allowing it, and I'm being the physical instrument along with my instruments. But it's that we step into this partnership with the spirit realms, and in my work, always the compassionate ones, the ones that have our well-being as their main agenda. And so there's a lot of people who, oh, I have a tuning fork. Bing! I'm a sound healer. And that's a flavor of sound healing. Or people who sit on the floor and play their bowls, and, there's vibrations happening. And frequently, if there is something spiritual happening, they may or may not presence it, like sound baths. Sometimes you'll just go, okay, lay down, and they start playing. And that's sound healing. And my particular brand of sound healing always has a very explicit and implicit component of the spirits. And then, so once we engage the spirits, there's so many layers of realities of beingness and causes of our lack of well-being, that in that invitation of stepping into a partnership with those spirits, they're using that sound to the benefit of the people who are receiving it. And sometimes there is very physical effects. So, and I learned some cool things from Tom Kenyon when I studied with him. And for example, and anyway, that the vibration of the bowls and rattles and drums, they penetrate our physicality, and they can change your chemistry, your ionic dynamics. With intention, the sound can get into between where the neurons fire, like the end of one synapse. There's a space where there's a transmission across a gap. And Tom was very curious about how sound and intention can affect what's happening in that gap. So it's kind of like this understanding that we as shamanic practitioners have known, that there's space between the spaces. There's space between the physicality. And so not only is the sound like at a physics level hitting matter and creating change, but then there are these other things that are happening, like, and especially for me when I'm working as a shamanic sound healer, if somebody tells me what they need or where they feel out of balance, then I can engage the spirits and my instruments and my voice to help create shifts, which might even be going back in your history and grabbing something that you need and buoying it back to the present and infusing it into you using sound. So it's actually pretty cool. It's this really, I'm a retired scientist. I studied 20 years in college and was a professor and blah, blah, blah. And so I had a very rigorous, testing hypotheses and, seeing is believing and that kind of thing. And now it's like, well, believing, when I believe it, I'll see it. And so there's this whole other kind of interacting with all these different realities, using sound and the spirits to help us manifest and get what we want and what we seek and what we intend. So, yeah, I don't know. Did that? Oh, the other thing I do want to say that I've learned probably in the last 5 years is that sound manifests. So when I studied with Tom Kenyon, his mantra was sound is a carrier of intention. And so we would make sound and work with sound in a spiritual shamanic container to manifest some kind of intention or bring about some kind of effect. And as I have been working, and probably influenced by singing at Sundance, sound is spirit. it's not just us wooing it. It's not just us being in partnership with the spirits and making sound to bring about some kind of effect, but it's actually sound helps spirit become audible. It's almost like a marker that there is a current of spirit that's moving through us and working with our instruments to come into somebody's field, physical, emotional, spiritual energy field, to bring about an effect, which was really, it's kind of like, well, I would sing, and I knew that there was spirit moving through me, and so forth. But it was really, really lately that I've seen that they want us to use sound so that we can actually hear and have that tangible experience of them coming in from the divine realms to have an effect. So it's sort of like what happened with my process of invocation, where I would do 6 invocations during my extraction ceremony with people, and all of a sudden I realized, oh, when I think that I'm invoking the spirits and asking them for help, and speaking to them about the people's intentions, I became very aware that the spirits were actually channeling through me to say out loud to the client so that they could hear what they wanted to hear, have the client say. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was like
Yeah.
I wasn't just speaking out to the spirits, but they were suddenly showing me that, oh, we're going to speak through you so that the client can have a new understanding about their intentions and about what we call in for help. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all channeling through you and from spirit, from the divine. And my experience might have been this way this time, but and the sound healing is still working on my physical being, but my experience could have been in a completely different topic next time. It's not necessarily always physical, what I'm actually receiving, my information, my messages. Sometimes it's going to be like way out into the ethereal, like type of subjects also. Like both, or all of it's possible. You can have kind of the full spectrum of it.
Yeah, so there's a flavor and texture of sound. There's the spiritual signatures that are encoded in that sound. There's pressure. That was an interesting thing I learned from Jonathan Goldman, was that sound has a pressure. And when I started thinking about that, it's like, well, of course, as it's coming into our physical realm, yes, we're hearing, we're registering it because of the pressure that it's causing in our eardrums, but there's also, waves have pressure, right? It's not just this airy fairy thing happening that doesn't have physicality. It has all these levels of physicality,
Yeah.
and experimenting and being open to watching and feeling, and especially listening for what needs to come in at a particular time for a particular person or ceremony.
Well, that's a really fascinating description of it. And it was a question that I was trying to formulate, and couldn't quite grab what I wanted to ask about that the sound and the vibration is actually spirit coming through in a physical form and that vibrational sound form. So almost like it's, I guess, merging with the sound.
Yeah, and I would say it would be an interesting experiment. um, I'm also pretty biased about creating that intentional shamanic or spiritual container, because not all sound has those effects. There's a lot of noise in the world, and there's a lot of people who are transmitting sound with their instruments that might be thinking about their laundry list, or not really connected, but they're doing the mechanics of making sound. And that's where it's like I have these prayers. Well, wherever they are and whoever they are, the spirits are, even if they didn't intend, even if they don't believe in spirits, that there are spirits out there who are curating effects, even if the people who are transmitting the sound aren't really conscious of or utilizing that knowledge and those gifts from the divine.
Mhm. Well, that makes sense too, that it's not always going to be, not every sound healer or sound instruments are spirit in manifest form.
And
That
maybe,
is a
or maybe
specific,
they are.
or maybe they are. Yeah, right. Yeah, how do we know, right?
So my job is to help people make it conscious and intentional and infused with divinity and the open heart, and sharpening their capacity to listen in that process. And
And
using their voice too. There's a lot of people I know I didn't hear today yet get into my vocal parts of sound healing, but that is also a really key thing that a lot of people are afraid of. They're afraid of singing or vocalizing with their instruments or their drum or their rattle. And I think I've been listening to this podcast, The Hidden Brain, about purpose. And one of my purposes in life is to help people find some freedom in using their voice to create and manifest.
That was going to be one of my kind of biggest questions coming on with you today, Lauri, is about that topic. And I don't even know what my question is, but it's around the fear that people have around using their voice in that way, whether it's singing or chanting or toning. Even in chanting and toning, it can be an area of fear or blocks, or limiting beliefs, or whatever is holding people back from integrating that within their practice.
Yeah, and like you hit it right on the head. It's people's limiting beliefs, early programming. Sit down and shut up. You're making too much noise. If you don't be quiet, you're going to go sit outside in the hallway. I did that a lot.
me too.
Not me. Not me. I never talked and was loud in class. I was a mouse.
The meek shall inherit the earth. Better heard than seen, or better seen than heard. You can't carry a tune. And those outside influences, we internalize them and they become part of our belief matrix. And then, they create these ceilings or obscurations and obstacles to creating something with their voice. And I love this story. I was working with somebody. She was always in my classes. She was my assistant. She tended fire for lodge, and she was a very quiet mouse when she started. And she was in my classes for quite a long time. And she told me this story one day when she came back into class. She said, I was at a school, I don't remember, whatever, Sylvania or whatever, and she looked across the hallway, way down the hallway, and something was getting ready to fall down on somebody, and she burst out and said, "Watch out!" And the person was able to get out of the way and avoid being crushed by something that fell down. And she said, I don't know if I would have been able to do that if I hadn't been, spending the intentional time with my voice in your class and outside and singing and so forth. And it was like, not just singing in our classes or not just toning or chanting in ceremony, but we use our voice for a lot more than that. We're teaching our kids constantly. We're training people. We're asking questions and requesting things of people all the time. And that is a vocal transmitted frequently. And, we also leave our Post-it notes. But the voice is very, very critical to creating and manifesting in our everyday life, not just our ceremonial and healing life. So helping people clear away some of that programming and have some positive experiences in feeling that freedom and watching what happens or what doesn't happen. Like they don't get spanked or sent out to the hall because they were making sound. They were creating with their voice.
Or looked at because they're not on pitch. They can't sing.
Yeah. When I was singing around the Sundance drum, I probably did that for 2 decades or more, and we were constantly told by our elders, don't sing sweetly. This is not about sweet singing of these ceremonial songs that are driving the ceremony. It's about power and character and like heartfelt force. And some, there were scratchy voices and, we didn't hit the notes, we never sang harmony or anything. That was totally looked down upon. And it was really, I think I had a really big set of teachings doing that work about how spirit's just going to come out with that heart, and in ceremony, that sound is going to come out and make magic. And if we're like, trying to control it with, making it sound sweet or on pitch, it's just going to get stuck in there and not do the work it's supposed to do.
Yeah, and adding performance anxiety to it. It's not a performance.
Exactly. And I think that syndrome, performance anxiety, plagues us all in so many different ways. And so my classes in shamanic sound healing and singing really tries to chip away at that. And, like, what is your purpose? What do we want these songs, this sound to do? And if there is a heartfelt intention for it, then there's a lot that can fall away when we just get out of our own way and make sound. And, maybe you can give yourself a hard time about it later, afterwards. Did I do that right? Or did that sound okay? We all do that. And it's a natural egoic construct that we have. And so we just do that afterwards. Or say, hey, I know I was here for a purpose. There was an intention. The spirits came in. I made some sound. And I know that it had a positive effect.
Can you describe some of the ways that you help people in your classes release their voice? Like, what's some of that process?
So there is just a throwing them into the water and pairing them up with somebody, and with a very simple exercise that Tom Kenyon had us do. There was like 500 of us in this big auditorium, and we paired up, and he said, just make sound, find out some kind of state the person wants to receive as a recipient, and as the transmitter, just start making sound, holding that intention. And it's kind of like being given a task, and in a spiritual container with somebody else, their intention as a magnet, I guess, just jumping in and making sound, and then we discuss it, and how was that for you? So we start out with this very basic, use sound to try to initiate a state in another person. And then I go farther into, okay, we journey and we find a power animal or a helping spirit to help us with this process of making sound. Because when we do that, when we see, oh, we're not doing this for ourselves, we're doing this for this other person, very simple, sing to try to change their state, then we call in a spirit to help that. And that we acknowledge that we aren't just the ego body doing this thing. We have support. We have purpose, and we have support from the divine. And then we have them do that again, but this time they connect with their spirit, their helping spirit, and they do the same task, and all of a sudden they start noticing, oh, I didn't die. That's the most important thing. I didn't die. Because we can trace our fear of making sound back to fear of death. When we were, the messenger, kill the messenger, right? Burn her, she's a witch. I mean, there have been so many times in our history, in our lineages, where we were punished for making sound, for bringing a message, for singing the wrong song, or, being loud. Being loud when people were looking for us and we were hiding, right? Being quiet meant survival. And so we have to we talk about these things and we bring that into our conscious awareness. So while we're doing these exercises, there's this supportive group that can converse and say, hey, I noticed I was going along and all of a sudden I was like, ah! And then we start wondering, well, maybe your ancestors had to hide and be quiet. And so now you get to do this sound making on behalf of them, which actually sends healing back to those people. And so we get into a spiritual, supportive, active, we do things, we didn't die, we saw the person gave us feedback, good feedback usually, and then we get this momentum. It's like a little tiny snowball that starts rolling uphill, gathering confidence, gathering new ways of thinking about, oh, well, chanting, I notice I feel better when I chant, even if I'm chanting for the other person. And then there's just all these ways that we can start adding positive reinforcement, some changes in people's mindsets about making sound. I do a lot of it's called word doctoring. I learned that from Tom Cowan. He was teaching us Celtic shamanism, and for the Celts, shamans were called poets. And they didn't necessarily sing, but they chanted poetry. And in the chanting of the poetry, the words, they were casting intentions to organize reality to bring about a particular effect. So sometimes I like take the pressure off. Okay, we're not going to sing. We're going to do word doctoring. Find a poem, bring it to class, and we work with the poem so they can start emanating sound with their voice, but it's not necessarily melody or tonal. It's words, something that their people are more comfortable with reciting a poem than singing a song. And so everything is about doing something, talking about it, noticing what amazing positive things happen, because they always do, because we're in this shamanic spirit container, noticing they didn't die, and noticing that their partner or the group had a positive experience. But it's sort of like popping just putting a little pinhole and then constantly making it bigger and bigger and bigger for people to step through.
Even if we think about hunter-gatherers, that they would have, whether they were predator or prey, they would have to have been quiet, and it meant life either way. So, but Lauri, I was wondering, were you always a singer, or in that realm, or is this a process that you kind of went through and found your calling? I mean, I'm sure it's both, but I was wondering if you have any sort of history of it, or did you go through the process? And
That's such a funny, good story. I haven't thought about it for a while. So my first memory about my relationship with singing in my voice was I was in 4th grade and I really wanted to join the chorus, and the teacher wouldn't let me for I don't know why. And my mom had to come to school and talk her into letting me be in the chorus. And it was sort of like, I wasn't quite sure what was going on. And then so it was like, oh, there is something about my voice that is problematic or requires parental intervention. And I also grew up in a pretty quiet household where there was no yelling or raising our voices. And then I started going to camp. And I think in 6th grade, first I took piano lessons. And I got kind of bored with that because I didn't want to play. I wasn't into classical, and that's what you learn on. And then I decided to take guitar lessons, and I picked it up right away. And I could play all my favorite, Elton John and James Taylor and all the, I guess they call it Renaissance music back in the 70s. And then I went to camp with my guitar, and I started playing at campfire, and they always turned to me and my friend Jeff, and he helped me sort of gain competency in playing the guitar, so we always led the singing around the campfire, and that went all the way through adulthood and then I met the founder of Light Song, and there became a very centralized focus on singing in ceremony, and particularly Lakota ceremony songs. And so we had to struggle. There was a couple of us who had to struggle through learning how to be the leader of these songs. And that led me, thanks to Ken Shirk, one of my brothers in the Sundance team and in Light Song, invited me to come to sing at Sundance. And I think once I started singing in Lodge, the Sweat Lodge ceremony, and once I started singing at the Sundance, my relationship with my voice changed, because I realized we were basically holding the dancers up with those songs. I became very aware spiritually that the songs were sustenance, critical nutrients, and that it didn't matter what I sounded like. What mattered was that I was bringing those songs through this. Back then they called it the hollow bone. I call it the song pipe now. And we were bringing these the sacred spiritual frequencies to ceremony to be of service. And it wasn't up to me anymore to have my ego anywhere near clamping down or remembering the suffering that I did as a child or whatever. It was service through sound became more important than my ideas of thinking about how I sounded or worrying about how I sounded.
So the other question I had too, with, speaking of the lifetimes and experiences of our soul, where we may have had even oaths that we spoke that can get stuck.
Yes.
And create the silence, vows that we spoke, that even vows of silence.
Yeah.
I think we also have many lifetimes of the gift of sound and the gift of our voice. And so I would imagine that shows up as people are developing too, that soul memory of those experiences of their gifts of sound.
Yeah, that's so funny that I have done a lot of journeys with people and experiences for them to go back into their lineage to gather the knowledge and the capacity for what is needed now. But it's funny that I actually haven't, I haven't for myself journeyed back there to see who did sing from my people. That's kind of a sort of oddly, I'm busting myself now. It's an oddly missing part of my exploration. So I'm glad that you bring that up. I mean, when I went back to a temple to one of my nephew's bar mitzvahs, I had just started carrying the songs for the school, and there was such a Hebrew and Lakota felt like they could have been brother and sister languages, because what the cantor was doing in the temple reminded me and felt like what I was doing in the lodge and at the dance. And so I wonder if I have cantors in my lineage and other lineages, what's the word I want? Traditions.
And other soul experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've really seen a lot of that with epigenetics and the energy of Reiki really waking up those lifetimes of talent, the lifetimes of gifts. And some of them are ordinary lifetimes, some of them are mastery lifetimes. and seeing sometimes the experiences that people have of that. And you think of really every tradition that I've studied, you've studied, all have some type of sound in their ceremony.
Yeah.
I was just in Japan, and Shinto ceremonies and Buddhist ceremonies in the temples where we were, and we're super excited in Taniai village where Usui Sensei was born and raised. 19th century, 19th generation Shinto priest doing the ceremony for us. And again, that involves sound. And then on Mount Karama in the main temple, the priest, monk, I'm not quite sure which term they use exactly. I think of it as a Buddhist, it's a Buddhist tradition. And that entire ceremony, the blessing ceremony that we received, was all done through chanting and sound also. So I would imagine, really, when we look back at our lineages, whatever that is, our soul's history and our genetic lineages, that we all have some of those lifetimes of the gifts or ancestral histories of the gifts of the people.
Well, I know that my spirits have shown me, and also I know cognitively that I can trace my genetic strain of shamanism back to Siberia. If you see pictures of my grandfather, like, I had a great opportunity when I was studying with Michael Harner. He would show films of shamanic traditions, like super old, even beginning type films. And one film, we got to see the Siberian shamanic camps and activities and ceremony. And those people look just like my grandfather, because he grew up in the Ukraine, and there's a lot of overlap with the Mongolian and Siberian people. And so I have, that is a line that I have followed back into the forests of Siberia, and I work with a couple of Siberian a shaman and shamaness who I have started to play around with throat singing, which I haven't ever formally been trained or anything, and that's part of what they were doing, and they were doing it, I think, to communicate with the reindeer,
Sure.
and each other across big long distances through that massive forest. So that is one line that I've journeyed through, but I like the idea of other soul history, lifetimes, and what I might have been doing back then through sound.
Well, even in you sharing your story about kind of automatically picking up the guitar and having an ease in that ability, there's something in there that some type of a cellular memory popping through even at a young age.
Yeah, I wonder if I was a bard.
That would make sense, right? Yeah, I would think of that in my own history, being pretty Celtic all the way through.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to do one last little sound bit. And I did squirrel away some instruments in my Southeast Portland home.
You have the magic green screen effect.
Yep. Yeah, I was noticing my horse angel is looking the same way as Robin's horse.
Well, and I typically have a picture of horses too that would be very much like what yours is. Is that one that you created on Midjourney?
Yep. So I was studying, I was in Karen Hefner's LMSA mystery school thing, and we were doing something with angels, connect with your angels or ask for an angel to come in. And that's not something I do a whole lot. So it was like, okay, I'll open to it. And the animal kingdom came in and said, we have representations of angels too. And the horse came through and said, there are horse angels. And so that was one of the parts of the prompt for this Mid-Journey artificial intelligence image generating program.
I love that. And I think that is something that is very much within the belief system of a lot of our listeners.
Uh-huh.
The animal angels. Yeah. Now we'll all have to just ask, can I meet my animal angel?
Hey, well, let's have that be the intention of this closing sound healing experience. I don't know. I'm going to connect with that horse angel while I'm working with sound and my voice, and yeah, just we'll do a quick little sound check because it looks like a gigantic wine a wine glass. How's the sound?
Just maybe a tad bit quieter for
Okay.
your voice. Yeah, that sounded the same.
So just a little bit before you start, because the people who are watching this can see what you're doing, but people who are listening, so you are going to do sound healing right now, and we can set any intention. But since we just talked about invite your animal angel to reveal to you, then anybody who wants to have that intention as well. So anything else you want to explain about what it is that you're about to do?
Well, what I've been doing lately for the last couple of years, especially with Zoom, is I will start in with the sound, and then the spirits will give me some prompts for people. So I'm not just playing my bowl and singing, but I'm listening to what is it that the spirits would like from us right now. And so the instructions will be part of whatever it is that we start to do. And yes, for the people who are simply listening, I'm working with a crystal. It's a wand. They call it a wand, but it's like this crystal bowl that's on a handle, which is really cool because I can swing it around and get over people's hearts and other parts of their body with it because I can it's a handle. And so we just invite people to listen. Listening is such a critical part of healing, of making sound, transmitting sound. We listen. We listen for those spiritual frequencies. And it feels like there's a thread. The people of the Kalahari call them sky ropes. that are hanging down, finding their way down from the star nation or the divine realms. A thread that's interpenetrating into our realities, our fields. And riding those sky ropes or threads are the divine energies and frequencies and identities of the perfect animal angel for you. A whole different kind of complexion to the idea of a power animal. And we just open our hearts to the perfect angelic animal. See a specific image, but there's clearly an energetic transmission, a handshake. An initiation of a path shared. An opening to the divine through an animal. In the most amazing, loving, energetic form, and we just let that vibration that sensation they say we want to make a holy impression, a holy imprint, planting a seed in the heart, a new reminder that we are not walking this path alone. That the animal kingdom and the angels thereof love and nourish us. And with that love, we nourish them in physical form and in metaphysical form. Blessing them and thanking them. And knowing that they walk, fly, swim, crawl beside us. And we say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful.
That was fun.
Was. Colleen, you're muted. There you go.
Do I have to come back? That was really nice, Lauri. And my horse Dakota came in. And for those of you that have heard the story before or not, I received Reiki because my horse told me that he went lame to deliver me to my power to heal. And so I've been, he's long since gone. That was quite a few years ago, but I've known that with him and that relationship with him. But he said, I came in from the angelic realms for you, and I'm here in the angelic realms now.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I have a collection of his tail hair.
That's right. That was part of my gifting. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been fantastic. And
Lauri, why don't you share where people can find you? I did have a question. Do you do sessions over Zoom for people that or are you only in person now?
No, I do sessions over Zoom.
Okay.
In fact, it helps me be able to see people, in Europe and across the country and so forth. And it's Lauri, Lauri, at shamanic.soundhealing.com. I mean, I totally lucked out with that domain.
I was thinking that too. Like earlier when you said it, I'm like, how did you get that domain? It must have been really early. That's fantastic.
It's really long.
Yeah.
But
well, it says what it is.
It is. Totally says what it is. I'll share my screen and show people my SoundCloud page.
Great. And tell them about this.
I will.
What you're doing.
So I don't know, there's probably, there's 56 tracks, and it's all free. I do know that occasionally there might be weird. Well, anyway, I would say to start out with my favorite playlist here. It shows up right in the spotlight. And there's a lot of different things that you can do with these. You can have them as background. You can use it as, there's several that are guided journeys. I have a whole set of guided shamanic journeys and meditations here that I'm speaking and making sound. And then some of my favorite ones I have up at the top. And then there's a whole, you can do your own healing session where there's a beginning, middle, and end. And there's lots of things that you can listen to and use as background for or primary sound healing kinds of activities with yourself.
So can you say how people reach that again and again? And then also for those who are only listening and not able to see your screen share.
Yes. So my SoundCloud page, which is all free, is soundcloud.com. Maybe you can write it in the chat.
We will.
Or somehow transmit it. soundcloud.com/Redstone Song. That's all one word, Redstone Song. That was the name the spirits gave me on a vision quest when I was down in the Four Corners area.
Redstone Song. Is it plural or
Just
Redstone
one.
Song? Okay, great. Well, and again, we'll put that in the description, but I also just want to explain for those of you that are only listening and couldn't see the screen share, which is on YouTube, by the way, if you want to go back and look at it. But she's offering her sound and her songs for free, and you are able to utilize that for your own purposes in your sessions. And then if you have background also, just simply if you are posting it anywhere, of course you would want to credit her and a link to where other people can find her as well. So kind of common practices that we use.
And then I have several tracks that have video along with it that you can have going. A lot of times my music, my sound is really designed to drive you inward, to have a shamanic trance meditative experience. And sometimes, but I have put some visuals to them to help with the process. If you happen to open your eyes and you want to see something before you close your eyes again. So this is if you type in Soul Note Shamanic Sound Healing, you'll find me.
On YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah.
So you can find her on YouTube as well. And again, we'll put it in the descriptions.
One of the things that I have noticed that started to happen, or people have reported, is that they're starting to play commercials in the middle of people's...
ours too.
It's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I looked for a setting and cannot, for the life of me, find a setting.
You can't. We've looked into it. So either people have to have YouTube Premium, or if your channel is monetized, you can take those off.
It's not monetized.
Yeah, exactly. Ours too. So we did we've been putting them on in audio only form on like the podcast platform. So we just use the same audio and put it, and people found success in that. But yeah, the mid-roll ads are like on meditations.
Yeah, they're deep in it, and then all of a sudden it's an ad about something that, we certainly have no control over what the ads are or where they're placed. So the solution for listeners is the YouTube Premium.
It's so worth it.
It is worth it, because it's like $15 a month.
I bought it because I was supposed to curate a playlist for the Christmas party, and didn't want commercials coming through, and I've just kept up my whatever. The other thing I noticed about SoundCloud, though, because I'm part of it and I'm a creator and I'm usually logged into my account, it doesn't happen to me, but sometimes after one of my songs, something completely and totally unrelated will come in. And I haven't figured out how to, the only way I think I can control that is to put playlists together, which is why I've done that. So you don't want to go get all meditative and then have, well, or maybe you do, I don't know, rap or, some weird, strange artists start coming into your space with their music.
Heavy metal.
Yeah. Well, and you and we are always trying to find the solutions for the different algorithms and ways that technology works. So, yeah. And
I do have an idea for those of you who use SoundCloud, and I'm going to start doing this next time I record, is I'm going to have a silent maybe 2 minutes at the end of my track so that people can come out of wherever they are, so that if the next what's up next that gets played through SoundCloud, if it's rap or something incongruous with what I just led people through, at least they'll have a couple of minutes of silence to come back into the room.
that's a good idea.
Yeah. I'm saying that as a service announcement for other people.
Yeah,
To think about doing the same.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And again, this is Lauri Shainsky, and she is at shamanic.soundhealing.com. And you can find out about her classes and her offerings and so many gifts and talents that she has. So thank you, Lauri.
I do want to mention a couple of my classes while I
do. Yeah.
So when the school dissolved, actually before the school dissolved, I was tasked with the process of bringing in the new ceremony, since the old ceremony wasn't going to happen anymore. The nature camping out ceremony wasn't going to happen anymore. I was tasked to start listening for what was next. And I have 5 other people who we formed a team. And when the school dissolved, we decided even more fervently that we were going to keep going. And so I was listening, and Terry Kim and Pamela Rico and Karen Hefner, Holly Jarvis, and Marty Nelson and I have formed a team. And I had been listening for a while, even before this was all happening, that I wanted to start a collaborative, to do things collaboratively. And so the ceremony came in and expressed itself as the Earth Heart. And we found magically some amazing land to do the ceremony on, east of Salem, Oregon. It's where the Fairy Congress is now being held. And a chef fell into our lap, so we aren't cooking. Nobody's cooking. We had an ethic of, we want this to be easy. We've been away from each other for 3 years, and the community is really vibrating to get back together. So we are putting on this ceremony, Earth Heart, a ceremony of listening, community, and listening, celebration, and connection. And so I think I gave you a link to that in my bio, which you can share. And so we're really excited. I'm going back to my roots of nature education and connecting people with nature, but this time with my shamanic and sound training. So I'm pretty excited about that.
And that's in July, right?
It's in July, yep. Mm-hmm.
And people are there for almost a week?
For a week, yep. Camping out.
Camping out. And are they then, is the training the entire week, or
Yes.
can they come in a little bit at a time, or
Nope.
it's for the whole week?
Yep.
Okay.
And we ask that people know how to journey.
that they know how to journey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in May, I pitched an idea to the Crystal Springs Rhododendron Garden here, a walk away from my Southeast Portland house, and I will be teaching people how to bird by ear in the garden. So I'm pretty excited about that, and all the proceeds go to the garden. There's one May 2nd, it's full. There's one May 11th, and there's one May 25th. So if this comes out on the 10th, people, if they listen to it, they'll hear about an opportunity. You can go to the Crystal Springs Rhododendron Garden website and look at their events and sign up. It's $40 for a 2-hour session. I'm really excited about it.
And that's bird.
Identifying birds by ear.
Identifying birds by ear. That's actually one of the very first things I did with you, is you took me out into a bird sanctuary, and we were learning how to listen to the birds. Yeah, 20 some odd years ago.
God, really?
25 years ago, a long time ago.
Just to end with a thank you, Colleen is the one who has attuned me to all of my levels of Reiki through Karuna, the old style Karuna. And yeah, so thank you.
You're welcome. That was one of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking about the voice is, I just taught a Karuna class on Mount Kurama in Japan. And of course, part of Karuna is chanting and toning.
Yep.
And there we were at the top of the mountain with our chanting and toning, and everybody was so into it.
That's so cool.
And it was such an extraordinary experience of sound and sound healing with it. It was really great.
Well,
So
thank you for the
you
work that
also.
you do. Yeah, and love to both of you and your family members.
Yep.
And I look forward to seeing you soon. Somewhere
Of course.
physical or in the ethers.
Right. Thank you.
Many blessings. And goodbye, everyone. And thanks for following these guys. They're extraordinary. Keep listening.
Thank you. And everything for us is ReikiLifestyle.com. So you can find out about all of our offerings, YouTube, podcasts, classes, animal Reiki classes that are upcoming, I think, after we post this. Our Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and Animal Reiki Master and Karuna Reiki in June. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Robyn, anything final?
Nope, that's all sounds great. Thank you so much, Lauri. And thank you to everybody that's listening.
Many blessings. Bye for now.
Bye now.
Bye.